Limiting beliefs. So how in the hell are you supposed to figure out what these things are? How do you identify them? Because really they're at the root, they're at the heart of what stops us. So what I've done is I've got this technique that I use to find my hidden beliefs, and I'm going to share it with you. So I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. I'm going to tell you how I use it and how you can use it to identify your limiting beliefs. And then also we're going to talk about why this is so important. Now, if you haven't been here before, I'm Michael Kowal, and I'm kind of like a cheerleader for exploring stuff that's inside of ourselves, like our heart, our soul, our beliefs, our thoughts, because that's truly where I believe creating the life that you want begins. Get all of this stuff straightened out, and your life follows, without a doubt. So if you're interested in any of that, I would encourage you to subscribe, to come along, because we explore different things each week, a lot of times techniques that you can use to help yourself, again, to create the life that you want. So with that being said, let's kind of get this thing started. Now, before I get into the first thing of exactly what this technique is, I want to tell you how it happened, how I even figured this out or understood that I needed to figure this out. So one time about 20 or 25 years ago, I think it was, I made this phone call, and this was before I moved to Los Angeles. And I called this one guy of some importance, at least, in my mind, and I wanted to get some advice. But what was really crazy was, as I started to make this phone call, I got a panic attack. And it was strange. I'd never had anything like this. And oh man, I got so scared inside. It's like everything locked up inside. I could barely breathe, and my mind went completely blank. And I had no clue what was going on. So I just hung up the phone. I mean, even before I talked to the guy, I hung up the phone, and it scared me because I was like, what the hell happened? What caused this? But I was smart enough at least to start the process where I kind of go, okay, well, what the hell were my thoughts leading up to this? Because everything was blank inside. It made no sense why this happened. And so I just made a long list of all the thoughts that came up, if I could remember, like what order they came up. And some of the thoughts I came up with were crazy. They went anywhere from, okay, well, he's not going to want to talk to me, to, I don't know what I'm doing. He's going to hang up on me. He's going to hate me. He's going to think I'm stupid. Anything I say is going to sound stupid. And then I go through this whole list and I started dumping everything out until I finally got to the final thing, which was, I'm nobody. And to be honest with you, as I looked back at this list, culminating down there with the idea that I'm nobody, it scared the hell out of me. Truly scared the hell out of me, because I had no idea that all of these thoughts were inside of me. And that's what I was dealing with. And if you've seen the other episode that I did in this series, it's about that I believe that beliefs are just a thought stuck on repeat. So each of these thoughts that I recorded down were really a belief. Each of those things, he's not going to want to talk to me. He's going to hang up on me. Those weren't simple thoughts. Those were beliefs that were inside of me, and that just keep repeating, probably in every single thing that I tried to do in my life. Those beliefs would come back up, and those are the limiting beliefs. We have a lot of them inside of our heads, and they usually finally culminate in the final pièce de la résistance, if that's how you pronounce it, which is that final big one in my case for that particular thing, which was, I'm nobody. So let's get into the first step here, which is exactly what is this technique. What I call it is I call it belief bubbling, and you'll see why in a second. And I know it's a crazy name for it, but you'll see how it makes sense in a second. And it's also kind of a fun way to look at it, at the process, because sometimes it can be a little scary doing this. So what it is if you've ever seen the old mind mapping techniques, that's essentially what this is. So in the process here, I'll just kind of give you you can see a quick video of me doing one. And let's say it's around a topic of love. What you do is you put love in the center of a sheet of paper. You draw a circle around it, or a bubble. And the first thoughts that spring to mind based off of that is what you write down with a little line coming off of it, because it kind of lets you know, okay, around the subject of love, in this case, what are the thoughts that I have around that? And it's just free associating, but it's a way to capture those thoughts, those beliefs on paper, so you can see them as a complete snapshot. So in this case, let's say you've got, you think of love, okay? And you think of, well, I'm single. Everybody thinks of me as a friend. Okay, no one loves me, all of these other things like that, right? So what you do is you write down each one of those around there. And then each one of those will trigger other thoughts or other beliefs around those. And in the end, what happens is once you get all these clusters of the beliefs around there, usually what happens is all of a sudden you'll go off to the races on one, because one particular subject off of there will kind of trigger something in you. And suddenly all of the thoughts, the associated thoughts with that, will just bubble out onto the paper, and you can barely keep up because you're writing as fast as you can, drawing a circle and going to the next one, because another thought gets triggered. Another thought gets fired. And that thought and those things are beliefs. And so when you finally get out there, sometimes I have where I've gotten out to where I circle around the entire page maybe a couple of times until I finally get to the last one. And in this case, maybe that one is, I'm unlovable. No one will ever love me. And if you have a thought like that inside of your head, I guarantee that that is a thought that is firing constantly in there, and it is a belief. It is a hidden belief. It is a limiting belief. Because as long as you hold that belief, those thoughts are going to fire off no matter what the situation is. Whether it's with your mother or your father or a love interest or anything like that, they'll always fire off. And that's why hidden beliefs are so difficult in our lives. So what do I recommend to do with this? So what I did is the first time I figured this all out, I did it for 2 weeks straight, every night. And I usually did one subject, or if I got, excited about it, I did it, 2 or 3 subjects in the center of the page. And I would just simply write that down in the center of the page and follow it wherever it led. And like I said, sometimes it would end up where the lines would trail all the way around the paper, right? It was almost like it was a primal scream caught on paper. A lot of times when I did this, I would get so angry with myself or with somebody else as this whole emotion just came up out of me as I'm finally writing these things down and seeing what's going on and just getting to the end. I would yell, I would scream, I would write little tiny things on the paper. Sometimes I would take a separate sheet of paper to be able to capture everything that I thought about this particular subject. And it was miraculous. It was pretty amazing. Because in the end, what this process does and why it is so magic is that it captures everything like a photo. So each of these thoughts, each of these beliefs are caught on the page, each separated by a little bubble around it. So you can begin to look at each of these individually, not caught up within that kind of primal scream as you kind of follow everything out in an emotional release of all of this. You can look at each one as its own separate object. I like to call them creation machines, and I did a video on that also in this series, because that's also what beliefs are. They're creation machines. And if you don't think that any one of these beliefs, that belief at the end that let's say, no one will ever love me, if you don't think that that's not a creation machine constantly creating that in your life, it's actually what it is. And that's why these things stop us in our life at every moment. That's why this is so incredibly important to do these things. Because not only will you find out what those final end limiting beliefs are, you'll see each one along the way. And what ends up happening is when you see each one of these along the way, like I say, separated by the little bubble, a little wall that keeps out all the feelings, all of the emotions, when you look at it on paper, it becomes a thing. And a lot of times what ended up happening for me is when I saw these on paper, I just simply let them go. All it took for me was to be able to just see them for the very first time. And I say, oh, that's stupid. I don't need that in my life. Get the hell out of there, right? That was the magic of this process. Because in one thing, you can begin the process of letting all of these go. Now, some of these, of course, we have believed for a long time. They are almost habits within us. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, if they were a very traumatic event, they may be in our cells very deeply, these limiting beliefs. And you can take special things to address those later on. And we'll get into those. I use meditation to kind of release those. But the thing is that once you're able to see all of these, you can start to address them. They're separate from the emotions. They're just a simple object sitting there. And you can just simply let go of a lot of them. But the others, you've got them on your radar. You can begin going after them. You now understand what the true, really difficult, deeply held, limiting beliefs that you have are. And you can do this for any subject in your life. Like I said, love, money, job, creativity, whatever it is, the dream that you want to create. Do some of these belief bubbles. Do it for 2 weeks. Try that. I guarantee you'll start to be able to see exactly what you're using to create the life around you. And you can begin the process of letting it all go and creating everything that you want. Try that this week. Try belief bubbling for a little bit, the different subjects. Try it, and you're going to see how powerful it is to finally be able to see what was once hidden, and now you can see what it is, and finally decide to let it go. Give it a try. You'll be glad you did. Love you.